Hi, my name is Deb Johnston, and welcome to Women Reinventing Midlife TV, where we aim to inspire women over 50 to thrive in a meaningful life that you deeply desire and deserve. Here you're going to find real life stories from women over 50 to inspire you to reinvent any aspect of life, together with tips and content around mindset, wellness, and style to guide you to build confidence and vitality in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And today we have an amazingly inspirational story to share with you because I'm joined by Sandy Davies. Now, long before writing books and launching HappyPause, Sandy Davies was born and raised in the American Midwest in the state of Kansas. Sandy accidentally ended up in Australia, and she stayed here, and she's actually not that far away from me, where I live in Cairns. She's actually in a beautiful part of the world too. She is the Queensland-based formulator and founder of award-winning HappyPause, which is a natural preservative-free solution for intimate dryness. And I'm going to let her tell you more about that and the transition and journey that led her to creating it. So Sandy's mantra is, it's never too late and you're never too old. And I absolutely agree with that. Sandy, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much, Deb. It's just so exciting to be here. I love what you do, and I love your message for all of us for thriving through midlife.
And I love we're both on the same page with that. And I really, really love what you do too. And we've kind of not been aware, either of us, that we both live in the same area. You live in the Daintree, don't you? You live around that area.
Yeah, I'm just about 7K south of the Daintree River, so almost off the grid, but still with power.
Nice, nice, beautiful part of the world. Yeah, yeah, I love it. Well, you have created this amazing product for women to help us target or find a solution for one of the symptoms that is not often talked about, that affect what, over about 75-80% of women in this phase of life. And that was through your own journey, wasn't it? So tell us a little bit about how you got there. What was the transition?
Yeah, well, Happy Paws came about just out of absolute desperation. We had a tourism adventure business down on World Heritage listed Fraser Island, and we had semi-retired to the tropics. And our whole intention was to just completely drop off the edge of the planet and be invisible, which we did for nearly a decade. And then perimenopause hit. And there was so little education or understanding around menopause for us when I hit perimenopause. And I started to develop dryness, and I had these horrific flooding events, they're called now. I now know they're called flooding events, when you get an extremely heavy period after you've gone a few months in that menopausal transition without a period. And I started to develop dryness along with those flooding events. And I kept going to my GP, which in the tropics is a very extended process. It's a few weeks to get in, and then it's a few weeks to get back again for the follow-up appointment. And the response was, it's just perimenopause. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, if this is just perimenopause, menopause is going to be awful. How am I going to cope? And then, because it kept being such a serious issue, he finally said, oh, you could try KY jelly. Well, KY jelly is a lubricant for sex. It is not a moisturizer that's going to actually have any longevity or lasting effect for vulval and vaginal dryness. In the end, the only other option he could come up with was counseling. And counseling is great for so many things, but it does not fix a dry vagina. So I ended up ordering products online from all over the world, and everything was still either high dose or gluggy or full of chemicals, like the option the local chemist had offered me that I had an allergic reaction to. And I just thought, there's got to be something better.
Mm.
And my chemistry teacher from high school, Mr. Beach, he is now just so proud and so chuffed of this 50-something student from back in the 1980s, because I went back to my science roots and formulated HappyPause. And it was initially to solve a problem for me, but it was so amazing. I hit a home run. And it was one of those things I couldn't keep it for just me and this small circle of women in far north Queensland that were benefiting from it. I had to make it available for everyone because it's such a serious problem, dryness. Who knew that it can affect 70% of it? Well, 70 to 77% of us over the age of 40. And not just during peri and post menopause, but like all the way through the rest of our life.
Yeah, it is quite incredible that it does affect so many of us. And considering that women over 50 form more than 50% of the global population as well,
exactly.
It is quite profound that we are not. Now, if this was happening to a man, I am sure it would be everywhere. Everyone would know about it.
Exactly. And yet with us, it's only that small population with real extreme severe dryness that ever seem to get any treatment or any comfort and solution to it. And yet all of us, we just, sometimes we don't even realize, we're wriggling, or we don't enjoy gardening as much as we used to. We can't sit still at the movies. And one of the biggest ones, who knew, like micro tears from toilet paper.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, we go for a wee in the shopping center or somewhere different. And then all of a sudden we're uncomfortable and we're wriggling a little bit. Hours after, it's the micro tears from the toilet paper because our skin has begun to thin and we're experiencing dryness. And we don't have that natural lubrication that we did. So it's not just sex, even though even our GPs think dryness is only about intimacy and intercourse.
Yeah, I know. That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. And really, that's a societal view, isn't it? It's a patriarchal view. But, the thing is, we've been surrounded by it so much that we actually start to believe that it is just about sexual intercourse, when in fact it isn't. And it can affect, as I recently did an interview with Shirley Weir on the summit, and she was talking about wearing yoga tights, wearing jeans,
yes,
all that. Yeah. Which is incredible. And I know that, this is something that I've been dealing with and looking for different ways to address it. And when I first went on to Google to research it, it's a minefield. Like to try and sort through, well, does that have chemicals or doesn't it? Is that the right formula for the vagina? Like it's a minefield.
Exactly. And for me, like dumb me, when I was first going through peri and experiencing dryness, I didn't realize that we just have such an extreme inbuilt white coat trust, because it didn't even occur to me with what the pharmacist offered to even look at the ingredients, even though it was something that was going to be a multi-day dissolving pessary inside my vagina. It wasn't until I had this allergic reaction, and that is not the right place to have an allergic reaction. And that is not the right place to have an allergic reaction. And then turn it over and look at the chemicals, and your eyes pop out of your head as you read them.
And that's why. And that's why, yeah, absolutely. I can see that you're really passionate about it. And this is one of the things I notice with women who reach this stage of life and have used their own experience to start reaching out, their own experience together with their own skills, their own talents, to actually start reaching out and helping other women. There's so much passion there because we know how it feels to actually be there.
Absolutely, exactly. And, when I started, I really didn't have any expectations for how big or small HappyPause would grow. And my heartfelt vision at the time was, even if I could just help one other woman, because my mom and her best friend, Patricia, they had both struggled with what their generation called vaginitis right up until the day they died. And I kind of realized in Perry then, when I experienced dryness, oh my goodness, they really needed something too. And then here our generation came and I was struggling. And I just thought, if I can even help one other woman not struggle like the generations before us. And it's grown into thousands now. And I just feel so validated to be on this journey, and not just for the product, but the whole concept of destigmatizing menopause and helping us get past those negative stereotypes and negative connotations, because we deserve to feel good, we deserve to thrive, and we deserve for this to be the best time of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We do deserve for it to be the best time of our lives. And it's about, and if we don't talk about the issues that need to be talked about, then we're not going to get there, are we? It's we're not actually going to experience that. And even though, like, we talk about the sexual aspect of vaginal dryness, and it's not just about that, that is an important part too, because if we've got the dryness, if we've got pain happening then there's no way we're going there, not if it's painful.
Exactly. And it's bad enough that we start to have those libido wanes. And then if you add that difficulty as well, oh, yeah.
Exactly. So that is an amazing transition, and that happened for you after menopause, or actually just moving into menopause is when it first initiated, going through the perimenopause stage. But what actually led you to coming to Australia? Because that's a really big leap as well.
It's such a big leap, but it never even occurred to me that it was a big leap. And I've had this dream my entire life of eventually becoming an author, and there would always just be curveballs of, I'd start to have a go and I'd have a rejection from an editor, or I'd get halfway through a manuscript and then our business would just get so busy that it would just get set aside, or stuff would happen with our kids, and it just kept getting delayed. Well, finally, in my 50s, I have commenced my writing journey. And I got to write in a book that became a #1 Amazon bestseller called Courage and Confidence: What It Takes to Succeed in Business. And it was amazing because I got to honor the legacy of my mom and the memory of my mom. And in it, I write about not only her being this amazing 1980s glass ceiling breaker, but the most common thing she dealt with when I came to Australia to do my graduate studies as a Rotary Fellow and then decided to stay. The number of people that chastised her in our little small rural Kansas town. How can you let Sandy go? Again and again and again, with almost a tone of criticism. And I am so thankful that not only did she raise me to be outspoken and confident and always just pushing forward for my dreams, but, she wanted my wings to flap as much as I did. And it never occurred to her to not let me go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm the same with my parents. So it sounds like you're from a similar town to me, where all the family grew up lived in the same town, and very close-knit unit. And I was the first to come to Australia. I was 25. And the same, neither my mum nor my dad tried to stop me. And I know that it broke their heart. When I left. But yeah, and that's a really wonderful thing to do for our kids, I think.
It is. That's the kind of heartbreak we want for our kids. Like, we want them to have better than we did. So even if we have to have a little bit of pain from the separation, that pain is also married with a joy of seeing them thrive and seeing them live the life that they're destined for. Yeah, it's irreplaceable. But I totally get what you're saying about your parents in the UK, because my husband is Welsh, and there are still people in his village that when they've had a few too many pints at the pub, they all get a bit maudlin and talking about Harry, the one that went all the way to Australia, the only one.
It's really lovely. It's lovely that there's that community, isn't it? That they're all there for each other, which is really, really lovely. I remember as a kid, I think when a very small child, there was a number of the houses on the same street were all our family.
Yeah.
Very small, yeah. So you clicked your red heels and you took off.
Yes, I did. And I never ever expected to be an ocean girl. Like I was always a mountain girl. Like anytime I had even a few days free, I was straight to the Rocky Mountains and doing mountain climbing and abseiling, and never dreamed of the ocean. And then I ended up in Australia. I didn't expect to stay. It just like I actually had a bumper sticker on my car that said, "A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle." And I met my soulmate, who then went on to become my partner. And it was the right thing for us to do, to stay here in Australia, because he had 2 young daughters that he'd brought out from Wales to build a stable life for. And we were always going to go somewhere else, maybe if I still wanted to maybe go back to the States once they were grown. But there's just something about the lucky country. Once you're here, there's no way you can go anywhere else.
No. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I very, very much miss my brother and his family, and my uncle and my aunt and their family, who are, my uncle and aunt still alive. But I wouldn't want to leave Australia. I mean, obviously now, because my kids and grandkids are here too, and my partner's here. But yeah, there's just something especially about this part of Australia. I agree. So your mum actually came out to join you, didn't she? My mum did, but your mum came out to join you. Yeah.
Yeah, she did. We unfortunately lost my brother to suicide the night before his 40th birthday. And as happens with those tragic circumstances, it just shatters your family and everything changes. And unfortunately for my parents, would have been their 50th wedding anniversary, but they tried and tried and tried to navigate the loss of a child before them, and they just couldn't navigate the path together. And we ended up with my mum then coming out on an aged parent visa and living out the rest of her days here with us, which was an amazing gift for us. And it gave her the freedom to work through that. Well, you don't ever work through that grief, you always carry it with you, but it gave her a way to find resilience along with the loss of her son.
That has to be the worst loss to go through, I would imagine, the loss of a child. It's I know my grandmother went through that with my mum. We lost my mum, and way before my grandmother died, way before my nan died. And and really going through that, I was so filled with my own grief. I was pregnant with my second child at the time. I was so filled with my grief that it didn't even occur to me what my nan was going through in losing a child. Grief is such something that, again, isn't talked about enough. It isn't acknowledged enough. And sometimes it's not felt enough. And if we don't deal with what we're feeling, if we don't allow ourselves through the process, it really can cause real problems later on, can't it?
That's so true. And it is another one of those crazy taboo topics. Like I found when I first moved up here, I was volunteering a lot in aged care. And the coordinator would tell me, "Oh, you've got to stop talking about X or Z because it's coming up on the anniversary of when they passed." And I found for most of the aged care clients, if we could talk about the people who had passed, it actually helped them with their grieving. And it was just such misguided advice to, "Oh, don't talk about."
Yeah.
And I find, like, for us this morning, we have just done a batch of 400 jars of HappyPause balm before our conversation.
Wow.
And my mom's passing, we were absolutely so devastated when she passed, and we had built our life up here around her. So our house started with an independent living area for her, and then we built the rest of our house around it. And after she passed, we were just lost about what to do with the space. And, everyone's advice, oh, you get some good money with Airbnb. And it just didn't feel right. And then the HappyPause journey commenced. And if we hadn't built our life around mom's well-being, we wouldn't have had a laboratory after her passing, because we've turned her living space into our laboratory for HappyPause. And grief is never ending, but the actual heart stopping part of the grief does ease and does pass, and bits of joy seep back in. And we actually have a picture of the fireworks from how my mom's ashes were dispersed above our filling machine. And this morning, when we were pouring a batch into the filling machine, and I looked at those fireworks, I just thought, so thankful for the fact that we had her here in our life. And then the opportunity of HappyPause really wouldn't have evolved without her, even though she's long gone.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. So, and also the fact that it's not, I would imagine it's not just the fact that the space was created from where she lived, but also I think the experience of loss and of challenge helps take us to those steps. We don't like loss, we don't like the challenges, but they often help us grow into who we're meant to be, to fulfill a certain purpose. Yeah,
absolutely. And I always say that joy rises. So even in the depths of grief or depression or sorrow, no matter how dark, there are always cracks where the sunlight just forces itself back in, and then it just widens those cracks. So even when we are in one of those dark spaces, the light does come back in and the joy does come back in.
And it's then allowing ourselves to see that light, to feel the joy, because there can often be that feeling of guilt. I shouldn't be feeling joyful. Yeah. True, isn't it? And it's so like, this is not what life is meant to be. We're meant to experience all the emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to give ourselves grace. Like that, I'm a hypocrite though, because I'm not always good at giving myself grace. Like I caught COVID and I just tried to go straight back out running and ended up back on my back again because I didn't give myself grace. But we but we have to give ourselves grace, and especially when that negative chatter or guilt starts to come back in and get on our head. Part of giving ourselves grace is knowing what we're capable of, but giving ourselves grace is also embracing and living our dreams and allowing goodness in, and not self-sabotaging or just trying to close out anything good because of the pain that we're feeling.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And I feel too, Sandy, that when we do allow ourselves to feel the grief when it's there, when we allow ourselves to feel the sadness when it's there, then we're more inclined to embrace the good stuff that comes in as well.
Absolutely. And I remember you did an amazing meditation. I can't remember which one, but you did an amazing meditation about making sure that we connect with that feeling of worthiness that helps us get through all of that and allow ourselves to feel everything, including the good and the sad.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is. It's so important. Oh, I can't remember that meditation. I wonder which one that was.
I'll try to go back and find it. When we post later on socials with the links, if I can find it, I'll put a little link in there.
So you said you've got 400 jars of HappyPause going out. That is awesome. I need to get my order in fast before you sell out of that.
It's one of those things, like when I first started, I really expected not, I guess, not to be flooded with orders. But the thing is that once one of us finds a solution for dryness and we talk about it with other people, that thing of having soothing comfort and feeling good, it's exponential. And even for me, like solving dryness, I know it sounds like that shouldn't be such a big deal and amongst all of the symptoms. But for me, solving dryness made everything else manageable. It made me feel beautiful again, I guess. And made me feel like, I had my jam going on, and, you could skip out the door and didn't matter what came your way, you could, fling it away. So everything else was easier. And I had no idea how much dryness could actually impact, our whole sense of well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having experienced it, I totally get it. Yeah, totally get it. Because there's a dryness and there's the atrophy as well, and that's even more so difficult to deal with. Yeah.
And who knew vaginal atrophication was a thing? It's one of those things, we don't have enough education before we hit midlife. I love that there are so many advocates like you and I out there now that are making the menopause experience different and better for the next generation.
Yeah, me too. I love it too. And what I also love is that you've actually reached in and pulled out all those skills and those talents that you had in your younger years. At school, come back to all the science stuff to bring it out. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that sometimes we forget what we are capable of. We forget what we're capable of.
Exactly. And sometimes we get so busy, especially in our 30s and 40s, whether it's pursuing our career track or juggling all the activities of our kids or just trying to survive the day to day. We get so bogged down that we totally forget the magic about us and all of the things that we can do. Like in our 20s, we had to go at everything. So we just have to remember, I don't know, well, even like roller skating. I have a couple of friends that have taken up roller skating in their 50s. And I'm just like, that is so kick-ass. I just love it. Like whatever it is that is going to make us sing, we have to do it.
Yeah, we do have to do it. Yeah, we do. We do. Okay, so where can our viewers contact you, Sandy, and grab one of those 400 jars that are just going on, or even more?
Yeah, so come to our website. So it's HappyPause, which is a play on menopause. So HappyPause.com.au. So come to the website, and it doesn't matter from overseas as well. I have lots of orders that go to Canada, the UK, the US, Germany. And then also find us on Instagram at HappyPause_menopause. And I should also say as well, there's one other Instagram spot as well. It's called At the Power to Rise Above, because I've done a book about anti-bullying and trauma and resilience. And it all started from being in an environment where there was a female manager bullying young women. And I shared with one of the women my story of bullying. And she didn't believe it because I was so confident and radiant. And I realized in my 50s, we've done a disservice when we don't share with younger people the things that we've overcome. Sometimes they just see, our confidence or the fact that we're thriving as not having overcome any obstacles to get there. So that's how the whole concept of the power to rise above was born. And it's kind of my heart song. I feel like it's a book that was in me from when I was 6 years old. And there's 30 women from all over the world just sharing their stories, so that if someone's struggling with bullying or trauma or abuse or suicidal ideation, it's someone else that's walked in their shoes and wants them to rise.
Nice. I love that you've done that. I think so many of us can resonate with that, whether we've been through trauma or bullying. So many of us have been bullied at some stage. Yeah.
And we forget to share how we overcame that. And then, yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. And you have another thing, something else you wanted to mention. There's a significant day coming up soon, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And there's so many of us now speaking about menopause and anti-aging. But I've got to shout out Kath Mazzella because she is from WA. She has an OAM and she created an International Gynecological Awareness Day. It's coming up on the 10th of September. And she wants all of us all across Australia and the world to celebrate with frilly knickers and talk about our gynecological bits and develop an awareness for gynecological cancers because they're so rarely discussed because of all that stigma. And her catchphrase is "Viva la vulva," which I love. And the reason I want to shout her out in this International Gynecological Awareness Day on the 10th of September is because I was really struggling with post-COVID exhaustion and just the exhaustion of the stigma with menopause. And you so often get knocked back by companies or businesses because of this stigma of not wanting to speak about menopause. And I'd had an issue with actually being called vulgar because of doing something about vaginal dryness. And someone put me in touch with Kath, and I said to her, I'm just exhausted. And she said, oh, honey, you can't be exhausted. You've only been doing this for a couple of years. I'm nearly 30 years in. Let me tell you about exhaustion. And it was just lovely. She just gave me such a fire to realize that, it is a long journey. And for those women who have advocated for so much longer than us, we have to keep going and trying to break down these stigmas to improve the menopause and midlife experience for everyone that follows us.
I agree. And that's why it's so important that we do share our wisdom and we do find our voice to actually share what needs to be shared. I really agree. And for our viewers, you can actually access a live link to Sandy in this in the description notes underneath this video. So if you just click on read more, and you'll see a drop down box and there'll be a live link in there. So all you got to do is click on that to be able to go straight to her website and connect with her on social media. So I encourage you to do that. Sandy, just imagine that there is a woman out there who is ready to reinvent. What is one important tip that you'd like to give to her? Bit of advice.
Leap. Just do it, because the only thing worse than maybe failing, which you probably won't, is regret. And we've really got to live out the remaining decades we have with no regrets. So whatever it is, do it. Leap and have a go.
Yay, absolutely. Just get out there and do it. Because the more we delay, the more nervous we get, and that holds us back. So yeah, I agree. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for everything that you've shared today.
Oh, this was beautiful. Thanks for your time, Deb, and thank you for amplifying our need to address dryness and find our jam and thrive.
Yeah. Thank you for all that you do. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I trust that you've gained so much valuable information from listening to this conversation. And if you found this video helpful, remember to give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Remember that this affects between 70 and 77% of menopausal women. So share it with your friends, because we can all benefit from watching this. And if you'd like to see more conversations like this or receive more tips and content, then remember to subscribe to my channel. Just click that red button underneath and click the bell for notifications so you don't miss out. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your time. And I look forward to connecting next time. Lots of love.